Hi there and welcome back to The Single Cook. My name is Tiffany and I'm your host. So today I'm going to be using my leftovers, both from Thanksgiving and from before Thanksgiving, to create a dish. It could be an appetizer, it could be a main meal. That's really up to you. I'm going to be making egg rolls, but I'm going to be using some leftover Thanksgiving ingredients, like stuffing, and some fresh ingredients or fresher ingredients like ground turkey. So let's get into the ingredients and how we're going to do this. Okay, so let's talk ingredients. So one of the things that I'm going to be using, as I mentioned, is that ground turkey. Now, I could absolutely use turkey leftover from Thanksgiving, but I have other plans for that. So I wanted to use the ground meat instead. So I've got that. I've got a little bit of white onion left from something else that I've made. I've got a handful of button mushrooms that I've just diced up. I have some leftover stuffing. This is about 1.5 cups of stuffing. I don't plan on making a whole lot of these, but I wanted to get a little bit of something. I've also got some garlic, because obviously garlic. I've got some seasonings. I've got some sage, some thyme, garlic powder, and onion powder. I also have some carrot tops from my garden. I'm going to treat this just like spinach or kale, so a dark leafy green. I'm going to mix it in with everything else. And then the last thing I have, well, second to last thing I have egg roll wrappers left over from when I made egg rolls a couple weeks ago. They need to get used up, and I only have a handful left. And then I'm going to be using bacon fat and salt and pepper as well. Only a little bit of salt, but more pepper. So those are my ingredients. That's what I'm going to start with. I'm going to be making my filling in the cast iron pan, and then I'll wrap them up and deep fry them. So you also need oil if you're going to fry. Okay, so those are our ingredients. Let's get cooking. Okay, let's get into the cooking. So I am starting with some bacon fat in the pan. And this is my cast iron. And you all know I have a janky stove that I have to light by hand. So we're going to get that melting and heating up. I'm going to go ahead and toss in my white onion. And this is probably about 1/4 of a white onion. Then I'm going to add my mushrooms. And this is about 4 or 5 just brown mushrooms. And we're going to give those a stir. Get some of that bacon fat wrapped around those items. And get that melting and cooking on. Okay, next I'm going to add my ground turkey. And this is about 1 pound of ground turkey that I'm going to put in the pan. And this has been defrosted, so it's very squishy. Okay, and we're going to break that up and get that cooking. Try and get it mixed well with the onions and the mushrooms. Okay, and I'm going to go ahead and add my seasonings to it while it's cooking. So I'm starting with coarse black pepper. And then I'm going to be adding some ground sage. Some dried thyme leaves. And you may be able to skip this step if you are using turkey leftover from Thanksgiving, because that would already have seasoning on it. Because this is not seasoned, I wanted to add some of those Thanksgiving flavors to it with those seasonings. We're also going to add some garlic powder. And some onion powder. Even though I have white onion in there, I wanted to add some more of that onion powder flavoring. And I'm going to add a little bit of salt. And we're going to mix that all up and get them all incorporated. Okay, it's been cooking for a while, and I'm actually going to be removing some of this mixture for a different recipe that I'm going to use it for later on. Plus, I don't need that much meat with the amount of stuffing that I have for this recipe. So just removing some of that, letting it drain as I pull it out, and I'll set that aside for later. Now my pan still has quite a bit of juice in it from the meat, but that's okay. I'm going to use that as free flavoring. We're going to add in those carrot tops, and I really should have cut these up a little bit better before I put them in, and you'll see me kind of picking them apart as we go. These are still kind of half frozen as well, so I'll have to try and break that up with my spatula. And these are just the tops of carrots that I grew. They are perfectly edible, and they act just like spinach. So those have been broken up a little bit. And next we're going to add in our garlic, or jarred garlic. It saves a ton of time buying it in this massive jar. And like all measurements, I'm just kind of going with what I'm vibing with, and I always like a lot of garlic. So we'll get that incorporated in. And next we're going to add in our stuffing. And it's about 1.5 cups of stuffing there. And we'll get that all incorporated in, and that will soak up that extra juice left over from the turkey, and that flavor will go right into the stuffing mixture. Okay, that's all been incorporated. We're going to turn off the heat, and we're going to pull it out into a bowl. So next up, we've got filling our egg rolls. So I have my wrappers, I have an egg that I have scrambled up with a fork, and I have my mixture. So we're going to take a couple of spoonfuls of the mixture and put it right in the middle. I do have the wrapper turned on a diamond shape to make it easier for me to fill it. And we're going to just use the egg around the edges, particularly at that top edge or bottom edge on your view, the edge farthest away from me. And I'm going to fold it up over it and try and pull it into a tube shape before I fold the ends inward. And having that little bit of egg on those side pieces really does help it stick, and then just rolling it up so that it looks like a little egg roll. So I'll do a couple to show you my technique, and then I'll do the rest off camera. That egg wash, really getting on those corners so that they stick well. And then up from the bottom, pulling it in tight, or as tight as I can without tearing it. Fold in the sides, and roll. I like to leave it on the plastic to make it easy for cleanup. It doesn't stick to my cutting board that way either. And any egg that comes down falls on the plastic. And those are my egg rolls. It looks like I've got about 8 of them. So let's get to frying. Now I wanted to test and see just how well this was going to fry, so I put the one in to start, and then nothing happened. I expected bubbles, so I checked for heat. There was heat there, but it wasn't doing what I expected it to. So, see the photo at the end for the fate of this poor egg roll. Sadly, he died a tragic death, but let's try again. So I have now checked my temperature of my oil. There was a massive tragedy where it was up way too high. Even though it didn't look like it in the previous video, it got up to about 500 degrees and it completely burned that egg roll. But we got it down to a more manageable 355, and now you can actually see the bubbles that form when it starts to fry when I drop them down. And you will see me checking the temperature of the oil just to make sure that it's not too hot or too cold. And I kind of shake them around so they don't stick to the basket. And to double check the color as we go. So checking the temperature. My temperature gauge wasn't reading, and now it reads. Also, tip, if you're going to clean your fryer oil with cornstarch slurry, it will expand and explode all over your kitchen counter. So, be prepared. But it did work. So, our first 3 are just about ready to come out. We're going to pull those out and have them draining on paper towel. Nice and golden. And I will be hitting it with some salt as soon as they are out. Always a good recommendation for when frying things. So our next 3 will go in. And those will fry as well. Okay, they've been going for a while. We're going to give it a couple of shakes, make sure there's nothing stuck to them and that they're not stuck to the basket, and pull those out as well. And because that filling is cooked, we're really only frying the outer casing. And there's our finished product. And that has been our video for today. So we did have a couple of mishaps with the oil fryer. Normally I use an air fryer when I'm doing a bunch of frying, but I wanted to actually deep fry these. So I busted out a very old deep fryer that I have. I had to clean the oil, and that turned into a whole giant mess. I may put a picture of that at the end of this video just because it was so ridiculous. And then my oil got too hot. Somehow my fryer that is only supposed to go up to 375 managed to get up to almost 500. And I had put an egg roll in there to test when it was up for temperature, and it came out a charcoal briquette and smoked out my entire house. But things happen in the kitchen. Stuff happens whenever you're cooking. But we did get the oil back down to the correct temperature, and in the video you probably saw me checking it with my temperature gauge because I can't rely on the air fryer. So I was actually checking it with a temperature gauge to make sure, and we ended up with a beautiful tower of stuffed egg rolls. And the one that I cut for the picture, you can see the different pieces that are in it, the stuffing, the turkey, the carrot tops from the garden, and those were just blanched and then frozen, so that it was very quick and easy to take care of that, and then have those the rest of the winter for anything that I want spinach for. And then I used Arby's Bronco Berry sauce. I didn't have any cranberry sauce at Thanksgiving this year. It just wasn't something that we had. So you could absolutely use cranberry sauce for these, or gravy, or whatever kind of sauce you'd like. It's very versatile. It will go with anything, but that Bronco Berry sauce is delicious with it. So thank you for sticking around. Thank you for coming back and liking and subscribing, and we will see you next time on The Single Cook. Bye now. So if you're going to use cornstarch slurry to clean the oil in your fryer, make sure you use flour to clean it up. And that's my charcoal briquette.